All right, let's talk about the four-letter F word that's most likely keeping you stuck. And it doesn't rhyme with duck or luck. It actually rhymes with fear. So I want to share with you an interesting thought exercise slash actual exercise to help you move through fear more effectively. Because if you think about everything you want in life, it's literally on the other side of your comfort zone. A lot of people get to the edge of their comfort zone and they retreat because it's fearful. So where does fear come from? Well, fear is triggered when we encounter something new or something uncertain. So that's the initial trigger that initiates that emotion. That's a primitive reptilian response. But after that, the prefrontal cortex, the front of our brain, kicks in and does all sorts of weird shit that really moves us away from our dreams. So as an example, you embark upon something new, and we'll look at a couple examples in a second, and you have that initial fear response. So that's that kind of like innate knee-jerk reflex. But then the prefrontal cortex does a really good job at something most other animals, or pretty much all other animals to my knowledge, can't do, is it starts to project into the future and start telling stories about what might happen. And because of those stories, which by the way are 100% made up in our minds and not based in reality, we actually scare ourselves out of taking action. So I'm gonna give you a really cool exercise called the fear journal. And what I'd like you to do is think about from this point forward, and just do this for a week or however long you want to do it, is every single time you're encountering some level of fear, write down what the fear is. So write down what the trigger was, and then write down what your brain is predicting is going to happen. Okay, so that's all. You're just like, here's the trigger event, and here's the prediction my brain is making about the future outcome. Now, you're going to do that to the best of your knowledge, to the best of your awareness as much as you can throughout the week or the month. And then I want you to make common practice of reviewing this journal on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. Because what you're going to find, you're going to notice some interesting patterns. You're going to notice patterns of like, this thing triggered fear. My brain thought this was going to happen. And then when you review that event a month later, a year later, you're like, oh, wow, that was nowhere near what actually happens. It was actually nothing even remotely as bad as I thought. Or it was challenging, maybe, but still beneficial for me. So think about it in a few different ways. So I'll look at it like, I'll just give you an example because this is obviously, top of mind for me because I deal with this all the time. Is someone's interested in working with us. The reason they don't is because of fear of uncertainty. How do I know this is gonna work? That's the single biggest objection all the time. So a person comes in, they're like, yes, I'd like your help, but how do I know it's gonna work? Okay, so like the brain is going into fear mode. Uncertainty, I don't know what's on the other side of this. How do I know it's gonna work? The brain seeks certainty when fear is present. But you'll never amount to anything in life if you allow fear to hold you back from everything, because there is nothing certain in life. So what happens is your brain starts to kick into, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if I lose my money? What if I have a bad experience? And it's this whole like what if narration of books. Right? All this shit that's not based in reality in the slightest. And here's the other thing too, is that a lot of people live their life projecting fear into the future from past experiences. So maybe you had a bad experience in the past, and now that becomes the foundation of the book you're writing for the future. So you think that working with us is going to be more the same as what you experienced before, but it couldn't be further from the truth because they have nothing to do with each other, right? It's like if you drove a car that was absolutely shit, like the Chevrolet shitbox that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and you use that as the foundation from then like looking to drive a McLaren or a Ferrari. It'd be like, well, that car was terrible. There's no way this car is going to be any better. And it's like, well, dude, like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, you can visibly see on the surface, it's a very different car. So what happens is we start to make this story up in our minds about things not working out, things not being the way we want them to, and that prevents us from moving forward. And that's what happens. And then you never know how the story ends, except for the story your mind made up. Because what happens is the story in reality is very different. And although it may not all be peaches and rainbows and unicorns, it's usually a lot better than you think it's going to be. So what do you need to move through fear? Well, you need courage. That's it. Like, no one's going to come by and say, like, I'm not going to tell you, oh, I can guarantee you specific results. No, I'm going to tell you straight up, if you work with us, it's going to be hard. You're going to run into moments of hitting your head against the wall. You're going to have sleepless nights. You're going to have doubts. You're going to have things that don't work out. And guess what? You're going to encounter those things regardless because you're looking to build something great. The difference is that we can show you how to move through that, and we're going to be with you every step of the way compared to trying to figure this out on your own. So by no means can I or anyone else guarantee an outcome, but just being truthful with you, I think is the best thing I can do, is to let you know that like all the fear that you're like projecting that's in your brain largely has no basis in reality. Because once you're in and you experience it, then obviously it's a different story. Unless you're more committed to the story you've made up in your mind, and then the cognitive bias kicks in to look for opportunities to confirm the fucked up story in the first place. I knew they were scam artists. I knew it. I knew this was going to be a waste of money. I told you. You can certainly look for those opportunities to confirm your story. And that's why the saying goes, you can be right or you can be rich. I'm not in the business of helping people feel right. I'm in the business of helping people get rich in the service of other people. So that's just one example of how fear can hold you back from really amazing things in life. Another example could be fear about moving like across the country or moving to a different city. A lot of people, when we moved down to Mexico, were like, watch out, it's Mexico. I'm like, what are you trying to say? You're trying to say that like we're going to live here and the cartel's going to come get us and we're going to get like in crossfires like mafia wars? Well, where does that come from? Have you been to this particular part of Mexico? You don't even know where it is. Where are you getting your information from? Oh, Narcos and the news. Congratulations. So now you have a very, very fear-based, limited view of reality. So when you hear myself or anyone else move to Mexico, you're thinking, oh, that's what it's like down there. Watch out. So do you see how this like really fucks us from living the life we want to live? It prevents us from taking risk that, quite honestly, the bigger risk is not doing anything a lot of times and putting our dreams on the back burner because we're living a life of fear that is 100% built in our mind. Please understand this. Everything in your reality, it starts in your mind. Your mind is this movie projector, and everything you see in your world is coming from your head. It's like you're in the back of the movie theater and this is the movie that's playing. It's 100% made up. So your reality is completely different from mine. You see something as risky and scary. I see it as an opportunity, perhaps, right? I'll give you another example. So obviously being down here, there's more creepy crawlies, right? There's more spiders, especially now as our landscape and our gardens have grown. I've noticed some interesting cobwebs develop. And old Yuri, who was more fearful of spiders, would have been like, oh my God, And to be honest now, because I've been in the environment and I've experienced so much of it, I don't even care. I shower right beside them. I don't even give a shit. They're not going to do anything. They're there. They're doing their thing. I'm here. I'm doing my thing. It's no big deal. But again, it's because I'm actually experiencing the thing. Before, I was experiencing by making it up in my head. And so the human brain is amazing. It's an amazing horror and drama film director. It's very much like end of the worlds type of stuff that goes up on our head. And this is really paralyzing us from moving forward. And what I'm here to tell you is that when you actually do the thing, it's nowhere near as bad as you think it's going to be. So with the fear journal, what I encourage you to do is write down the trigger, write down what your brain is perceiving that's going to happen in the future, and then just do that as much as you can possibly think of. And then on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, look back on that journal and have a good laugh. Like notice the pattern. Oh my God, I thought the end of the world was going to happen. Actually, we went for gelato instead. Like that's obviously a ridiculous example, but you're going to see patterns where you're predicting things to happen in the future that are horrible. And then the reality is they were nowhere even near that. And hopefully that will give you enough objective data to say, hold on, maybe I can't actually trust what my brain's telling me. And all of this to come to this conclusion. When you feel fear, whatever your brain is telling you, you do the opposite. It's a really simple cheat code or mnemonic to actually doing great things in life. So again, the brain is trying to protect you, right? So if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, now let me preface this. If I'm standing on the edge of this cliff, 25 meters above the ocean, am I going to jump? Because if I'm standing here and I'm fearful of jumping into the water, does that mean I should jump? No, let's not be stupid, right? Like there's a certain amount of just like reality. But Generally, if it's like, ah, man, I don't want to really have this hard conversation with so-and-so. Because why? You're projecting, you're creating this story in your mind about what's going to happen. Have this conversation. It's not going to be as bad as you think it's going to be. So every single time you're hesitating to do something out of fear, that fear is the very trigger for you to do the opposite. I don't want to do X because I don't want to go work out because it's going to be uncomfortable. That's a very simple, basic example. Well, the fear of being uncomfortable is the very reason you're going to go work out. Okay, so whatever you're afraid of, you do. Don't let your brain determine what you're going to do in your life. Now, your brain is an amazing tool, an amazing servant, but a terrible master. And if you start to recognize how a lot of us are operating on autopilot, where we get triggered and then we create stories that don't serve us, hopefully you can take back control and start to direct your life in the way that you want it to. I get this question a lot from people in our community. And one of the first things that we do with our clients when they start working with us is we help them identify the best niche for them to focus on. And the reason for this is because when you are proactively marketing your business and you want to build a sustainable coaching business, you can't help everyone.